Welcome to the Invest for More Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Ferguson, and I am your host. I'm a house flipper. I flip 10 to 15 houses a year. I own 13 rental properties with a goal to buy 100 by 2023. I'm also a real estate agent. I've been licensed since '01. I run a team of 9. We sell close to 200 houses a year. So on this show, we like to interview house flippers, landlords, and the best real estate agents in the business. So stay tuned for some great shows. If you want more information on my rentals, on the numbers, how I buy properties, check out investformore.com. Hey everyone, it's Mark Ferguson with Invest for More, and welcome to another episode of the Invest for More Real Estate Podcast. Today, I have a really cool guest on the show. Nikki True is on, who is my assistant. She's worked with me for years now, 5, 6 years, I'm not sure exactly, but she's been really awesome. She's a licensed real estate agent, helps me with my flips, helps me with BPOs, does a really great job. So today, I'm going to interview her, get the inside scoop on what it's like to work with me, how she's been successful as an agent, really part-time, and learn how she's been successful. So Nikki, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you today?
Good. Thank you for having me on the show today, Mark. Excited to be here.
Cool. No, thanks for being on. She's a little nervous. She doesn't do this very often, so or ever.
Yeah.
Cool. So Nikki started working actually for my sister part-time and then started working for me, but I don't think she ever thought about being in the real estate industry. So to start off with, Nikki, tell us, what your major was in college, what you were thinking. Did you have plans for college, and how did that evolve into real estate?
Yes. So I actually have a degree in sociology and a Spanish minor, so not related to real estate or sales whatsoever. I graduated back in 2009 from UNC here in Greeley. At that time, there just wasn't a huge market for graduates as far as jobs go. I was waiting tables and just tired of it and needed to find something a little bit more stable and something to kind of carry me forward. I had printed out applications for grad school and kind of thought about going that route because there wasn't a whole lot of jobs in my field unless you had your master's. So I almost went down that route. And then honestly, on Craigslist, I think it was, is where I found Wendy, Mark's sister, was just looking for kind of administrative work and managing properties and stuff like that. And I applied. It ended up working out great. It wasn't related at all to my field of my degree and everything, but I really enjoyed it and just kind of followed it up to where I am now.
Cool. And my sister, she's invested in rental properties, real estate for years and years and years. And her specialty was college rentals. And she also had a property management company where she had over 100 units at one time she managed. And so Nikki worked for her as a property management person. I know that may not have been your favorite thing to do, but what was your impression of property management in that business when you were working for her?
I hated property management, and Mark knows how much I hate property management. I was fresh out of college, so I was very similar in age to all of the tenants that I was managing and in charge of, and they just kind of felt like they didn't have to listen to me or answer to me when they had questions or concerns and stuff like that. And I think that was my biggest issue, was I needed to step up and take a little bit more management with them and everything. But it was a struggle. College properties just weren't my thing. I still to this day hate property management. I don't hate the single family as much, but the college was just a struggle for me. And I have no desire to ever, even working with Mark, have a college property investment anytime soon.
Mine are all single family rentals. And I had one sort of college rental that I just sold. But seeing the single family versus the college rentals, what do you think is the biggest difference landlords should look at when deciding if they want to get into college rentals? How are the tenants different from single family tenants?
Definitely, I would say the biggest thing was the turnover rate. Most college students don't stay because, they get in a fight with their roommate and one moves out 2 months later, or so-and-so doesn't like it here, or their parents don't like it. And so our turnover rate was just absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, just every couple months, I felt like people were finding new tenants to move in and out. And I never knew who was in the house and who I was sending bills to and who I was dealing with, people that weren't on the leases at all. So I think that's probably the number one thing, where you get into a single family and tenants are much more long-term. Even if it's just a year, you usually don't even run into turnovers before that. So I think that's the number one thing. Another thing is just how hard college students are on properties with parties and just the number of people in and out every day and the upkeep. I feel like single family folks take care of the property a whole lot better, and they take a little pride in it and try to upkeep stuff and are in contact if stuff is breaking or falling apart, where a college student really could care less and doesn't let you know until weeks later that something's broken or been damaged and stuff.
No, that's great stuff. And one thing I remember Wendy telling my sister is she'd have so many houses that froze over Christmas break because the college students would simply turn the heat off because they wanted to save money.
Yeah.
And the pipes would freeze and there'd be a big disaster and it was a mess. But no, good stuff. One thing too, when you're screening, I don't know, maybe you don't know this, but Wendy would, when you're screening tenants for college properties, do you think that's tougher than single family because they don't have a credit history?
Yes.
Maybe they're relying on their parents to vouch for them. How do you know if they're going to be a good tenant?
A lot of them were fresh out of the dorms, so you didn't have even like a reference, like a prior rental reference or anything. If they had prior rental references, we definitely checked with that. Otherwise, you were kind of just going on parents, and if they had a job, we would verify that they had a job and had an income, even if it wasn't a ton coming in. But no, I definitely think that's a big hindrance as well with college properties. You just don't have the screening ability and, credit history and stuff like that to review at all.
No, good stuff. Eventually, my sister kind of phased out her property management business and just manages her own stuff. And somehow you came to work with me, and it's been awesome. Yes. Love having you here on the team. But how do you think your job, or first, I guess we'll start with, what were your first responsibilities with me, if you remember, and how did that change versus property management?
First things was definitely like some mailing and marketing, I believe, and then kind of learning slowly how to take over the broker price opinions, the BPOs, and do those were definitely the first two main things that I took care of and kind of built off of that.
Yes, I remember you helped with property expenses too on the REO properties, which I absolutely hate messing with.
Yes.
So on the BPOs, a broker price opinion is kind of like, it's like an appraisal, but it's not an appraisal. The real estate agent does to give a value for a bank or sometimes a hedge fund. And I also have to complete them for my REO listings. So foreclosure properties that banks give me to list, we have to complete broker price opinions. So at one point, I know we've done over 1,000 BPOs in 1 year. I'm not sure exactly how many, but I've had other people try to do broker price opinions who just could not get them done in a timely manner, could not get over the hump of figuring out how to do a broker price opinion. Very smart people, but Nikki's been awesome at it. So do you have any tips, ideas on how you've been able to kind of work well with BPOs and get them done quickly and accurately?
I don't know that there's any like specific secret to it. I think it's definitely something I've just developed a system over the last 5 or 6 years and kind of just follow the system. It's never changed a whole lot. I have my set of criteria. I start with that criteria. If it doesn't work, I, expand a little bit here and there until I get what I'm looking for. The math as well, the adjustments and stuff on the BPOs, kind of same thing, just a system that I've just kind of built in my head and I work over time and kind of have it down to a science where it's pretty easy and I really enjoy it. I know like Mark and some other people that have tried to do it just don't, like they just hate it. It's just boring and not fun. But I think it's kind of interesting. I like seeing the value of houses. I like being able to drive through any given neighborhood and, I can just looking at the house at this point, I can kind of have a rough idea of what it's worth. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I don't hate doing BPOs, but I feel like my time can be used doing much better things.
Yes,
so,
yes.
And once in a while when Nikki's gone on vacation, I do have to do BPO still, which is not always fun, but I get through it. But learning the value of neighborhoods and properties is a really huge advantage of doing BPOs. Like Nikki said, I can drive through a neighborhood. She can drive through a neighborhood. We can see a house for sale and pretty much know within 10% of what that house is worth, unless, it's destroyed inside or something happened. So it's really a valuable tool for investors, for agents who are just learning, the business. Valuing properties is probably the most important thing you can do as an agent or an investor. And learning BPOs, completing BPOs is one of the best ways to figure out values and know how to correctly value a property. So it really is a great skill to have. And I'm really glad I did those thousands of BPOs and learned how to do them, even if they're not the most fun all the time. All right. So along the way, you've done broker price opinions, the expenses for REOs, which we won't get into that too much, but basically, yes, as an REO agent, I have to front money for utilities, for repairs sometimes, for getting a house rekeyed. We have to submit those expenses to the bank. The bank pays us back, but you have to do it in a certain way or they will reject it in a certain time. So those can be very frustrating. But then Nikki also got her real estate license. I'm not even sure when you got it, but shortly after you started working with me, you got your license.
Yes.
So how difficult was it? Was that a hard process to get your license in Colorado?
It's a time-consuming process, definitely reading the book, taking the classes online. It's not something, at least for me, that I was able to get through really quickly in a couple of weeks. I know some agents, sit down and knock it out in a week or two. I would say it took me a couple months probably. I wasn't sitting down full-time. I would sit down after work in the evenings and work on it for a couple hours, work on it for a couple hours on the weekends and stuff. So it did definitely take me a couple months. And then the testing from there isn't horrible, but it definitely is a time-consuming process and just takes time and, if nothing else, willpower to kind of just power through the classes because they're not exciting and it's pretty dry reading.
Yes. And did you pass your test on the first try?
I passed half of my test on the first try. So I won't lie. I passed, I believe, the national portion on the first try. I did not pass the Colorado portion on the first try. I had to go back again and do the Colorado one a second time, and I passed it then.
Okay. I won't make fun of you because I did the same thing. So cool. And then how have you used your license since, because, you still work for me most of the time doing the BPOs, different things, but at the same time, you've been able to sell houses as well. How have you been able to use that license to make some extra money and sell houses? What's been successful for you?
I really only sell stuff part-time and on a pretty much like family and friends basis. I'm just too busy right now between doing work for Mark, and then I also have 2 little kids that I like to get in as much time as possible with them. So I really don't do a ton of marketing. We marketed to the neighborhood I live in a little bit, didn't have much success. So for the most part, I really, I market Facebook. I talk to people when I'm out and about and just, try to make it known that I am a realtor. If you guys have questions, concerns, that's really all I do is Facebook and probably word of mouth marketing. And that's enough to keep me busy where I'm making extra money, but can still spend time with my family. And it's just really worked out great. I don't, like I said, I don't do a ton, but it keeps me busy and it keeps me happy.
And Nikki's being a little modest, but she probably sells more houses than half the agents in our office. And she does it part-time. And as she said, she doesn't do any special marketing. It's good old-fashioned word of mouth, talking to people. And it just kind of shows, it just takes a little bit of work to be successful as an agent. It's not rocket science. And she does awesome. So
thank you.
Very good job there. So we've done the real estate agent side, the BPOs. Recently, you started helping me out with my fix and flips.
Yes.
So last year, as many of you know who've listened to the podcast, I hired a project manager. It did not go extremely well. I had some issues with that. Properties weren't being fixed. Expenses weren't in line. And so I decided to kind of bring that into my team and have someone on my team help me with the flips. And Nikki has kind of taken over that role. She's done an awesome job. We have 9 flips now, or is it 10? 10. So I just bought one yesterday. So we have 10 now. Keeping track of all that can be tough. Keeping track of contractors can be tough. So I'd love to ask you, first of all, do you like working on flips?
I love working on flips. I've had a lot of fun. It's not something I was super involved in it all before, but I've really enjoyed it this last 6 or 7 months. It gets me out of the office and keeps me busy. It gives me something different to work on.
Cool. And she says keeps her out of the office. We've learned that the more you can be at houses, the more contractors see you, the more we can keep up on top of things. The better they perform, the better the properties look, the faster things get done. So she's out and about a couple times a week looking at all our properties, talking to contractors. So that's been a huge help. And then speaking of contractors, what has been your experience working with contractors? I know we've tried really hard to get good contractors and gone through quite a few. Do you have any tips for people looking for contractors? I know that's not an easy question to answer because I can't answer it very well.
I don't know if I have any tips. Like Mark said, I think it's just important to stay in front of them and make sure they know that you're involved and want to be part of the process and want to see that progress and checking in with them. Even if I'm only at the property every week or so, I'm still, texting, calling, emailing contractors. Our couple contractors we have right now, I'm sure I talk to on a daily basis. So there's constant contact. And I think that's the biggest thing. And you're going to know right away with a contractor if they're not willing to be in contact with you and keep you in the loop. I think that's a big red flag right there that maybe you need to, step away and look for someone who's more willing to be in contact and tell you what's going on and why stuff's getting done or not getting done.
Yes, I would completely agree. And I think one of the biggest problems I had before I hired my project manager and I was trying to do everything was I was not on top of my contractors. I kind of let them go do their own thing and hoped things got done well. And that never seemed to work out well. And I think that kind of happened with my project manager too, where he was just kind of not keeping tabs on everything like they have to be with a flip. So if you're flipping a house, it's not like you can just hire a contractor, let them finish it in a month or two, and never see the property and hope everything works out well. You have to have constant contact, have to be out there a couple times a week even to make sure things are going well, unless you can build a relationship doing multiple flips where someone knows exactly what you need. They've done it for years with you and you can expect what to do. But even then, you still have to keep track of them because in my experience, we've had contractors who were awesome for 2 years and all of a sudden they dropped the ball and disappeared or stopped working. Just things happen all the time. So you have to keep track of those contractors. Now, most of my properties I buy from the MLS. We've tried a few different marketing areas to buy them as well. But, Nikki, when I have questions from the blog and people talk to me, they always wonder how they can get good deals. They say there's no deals on the MLS. And you see how I buy them and how I bought properties. So, yes. What do you think about buying from the MLS? Obviously, I think it's possible because I do it all the time. But do you think it's that difficult? Do you think it's very hard? Or is it just kind of having a system in place? What do you think about buying flips and getting great deals?
I do think it's definitely a system. I think you can absolutely find good deals on MLS. I think it's just a matter of being on top of it. Mark searches the MLS like all day long, constantly, sounds crazy and tedious, but every hour, just run a quick search and see if something new's popped up, even if it's something that has gone under contract, maybe it's fallen apart. And, if you catch that an hour later when it came back to active, you're going to be the first one back in that property and writing an offer. That's what he does as soon as stuff comes up. He has me set it up for him and he's out there within an hour or two of it getting listed. And, from there, he can email or text myself or his other assistant, John, put together an offer, have an offer to the agent in 30 minutes of it coming back on. So within an hour or two of it coming back on, he has an offer in and ready to go. So I definitely think it's possible. I think it takes work and it takes a system, but absolutely possible.
Cool. And also one thing I know you're surprised a little bit too is some of the offers I get accepted that are maybe a little lower than list price, or we're having multiple offers and they accept mine. But do you see trends in why my offers might get accepted over others and how we structure them?
Yes, I would definitely say some of Mark's offers when I see them, I think are crazy low. And me as an agent, I'm just like, oh my gosh, why are these people looking at these? But, he leaves out appraisal, he leaves out inspection, quick close. And I think his name also carries himself forward. Agents in this area know when they get an offer from him, it's not going to fall apart for some stupid inspection reason. It's not going to fall apart due to financing. And I think they can take that back to their seller and say, this is a reputable investor in our area. We're not going to have problems. We're going to sign this contract and, we're going to close and there's not going to be a single issue that comes up with this person. And I think, part of it's writing contracts good and having it set up the way it needs to be. But another part is just kind of building that name and making a name for yourself where agents in the area know that when they get a deal from you, they're not going to have any problems.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. And I think it goes a long way to do things the right way. And other agents have a big influence on their sellers and helping them decide what offers to take, especially in some of the properties that we're buying where they need a lot of work or they haven't been updated for years. Usually the sellers are in not the greatest financial position to let a house get into that shape. or maybe it's an estate sale and the heirs are fighting over who gets money. They just want it to close fast and not have to deal with it. So it really can make a big difference in being selective which properties you buy too. I don't go around making crazy low offers on every listing I see. I'm very specific on properties that need work, that are already priced well, or maybe they've been on the market or come back on the market a bunch of times for inspection issues. So I'm not making 100 offers a week. I make maybe a couple, maybe, depending on the week. And I'm very selective on what I go after. And I think if you make too many offers that are low and crazy, that can hurt your reputation as well. So you have to be careful with that too. All right. So on the flips, obviously the most important thing is selling them and getting them sold, which has been tricky working with contractors and getting everything done. But what is your take and opinion on how nice to make flips and the repairs you should make on doing flips? I know we've worked with some contractors who want to do everything themselves and they don't always have the same design choices as us. But I mean, I guess what I'm getting is sometimes I see flips that are overdone and don't appraise right because they make them too nice. Other times people do really weird things and maybe turn off some buyers, or they don't fix them up enough.
Yes.
Do you have any opinions on how you think you should fix up a flip?
I think this kind of comes back to us knowing the market and we know not to put too much money in it, because from those BPOs, we know, what the property is going to appraise for, what it's going to be worth fixed up. I think you need to do I like to stick with pretty basic neutral ones, keeping up with trends, but not getting crazy trendy, and keeping it basic where someone can come in and, change our tan wall color if they don't like it. But, we're not going to go in and paint a house bright yellow on the inside or something. But I think it's important to keep like a broad spectrum in mind, even though pink's my favorite color. I'm not going to go in and paint all the bedrooms pink in a house because that would be crazy. So I think it's just kind of keeping a broad audience in mind, and also, like we were talking, making sure you know the neighborhood, the value. Don't put $50,000 worth of repairs into a home that isn't going to be justified at the end of the deal when it doesn't appraise because it's over improved so much compared to everything else in the neighborhood.
No, great stuff, and I completely agree. All right, so we've gone through a lot of the flipping business, what else you do on our team, the real estate side. Personally, I want to talk about a few things too.
Okay.
You haven't really invested in any real estate yourself, but you've bought and sold a couple houses.
Yes.
And right now you're in the process of building a house.
Yes.
And doing a recorded exemption, which many people will never do in their life because it can be kind of a hassle. So what made you want to go through this process of building a house and, going through all the work of getting this whole process completed?
Yes. So I don't even know if I wanted to go through this process. I think it was more, I live in town. My husband has his own plumbing business. His business has kind of just outgrown our house. It has taken over our garage. It's taken over our backyard, his trucks, his trailers. We don't have space for them. So we need to be in an area where we, can put up a shop eventually, where he can park his 2 work trailers, where he can park his 2 work trucks, that kind of stuff. And it just wasn't working in our neighborhood. Northern Colorado country prices are outrageous. We just can't afford to live in the country for the kind of house we're looking for, with the land, with any outbuildings or something. So we kind of decided to go another route. I'm lucky enough, my family for years and years has owned about 160 acres. Not my ideal location. It's northeast of our office in Greeley. So not quite as central as I'd like to be, but about 20 miles northeast of where our office is. And was lucky enough that my dad agreed to split off a couple, 3-4 acres of his 160 in order for us to be able to build a house and possibly put up a shop and stuff like that one day. So we've been working on that probably since about the beginning of the year. So the last 6 or 7 months. It is a huge process, just the first step, the recorded exemption, the paperwork on it. I bet I send in a 90-page or so packet of filled out county paperwork that's required, different documents that they require, everything from there. They have to review it and approve it. I actually just got approval this week for it. So now we send it off to have a survey done on the land and get that finalized, and then can go back to the county even before we can start the building. So there's tons of steps involved before we're even like breaking ground for the house. So we were hoping to late summer, early fall. I don't know if that's going to be realistic or not now, just because of the timeline. And it's been interesting. It's been a learning process.
Yes. And I know it surprised me how much the cost, what they were for some of this stuff. Like, how much was it just to have your architectural drawings done?
It was for the house we're doing. The house is roughly 3,500 square feet. It was right around $3,800 for the architectural drawings. That's before it's engineered. And then it'll be around another $1,000 to have it engineered once we're ready for that step of it.
And that was a plan you found online that you just tweaked. That wasn't...
Yes, it was a plan. Yep. We found online, modified, made it bigger, made some personal changes to make it work better for us. But yes, it was just something we found online and personally modified.
Yes. And then once you're ready to build and do everything, you guys are kind of sort of general contracting it, but not really. How did you find a builder and figure out that side of it?
My husband is a licensed plumber. He's been in plumbing for the last 8 or 10 years and gone out on his own a couple of years ago. He has been lucky enough to work with a couple of really, really good builders that they don't do a ton of building. They do more of the specialized custom homes. They only do a handful a year. So he gets the opportunity to work on really nice, kind of higher end homes that these guys build. He's actually kind of partnering with 2 or 3 of them. They're all going to be doing a little bit of work on the property, but the one agreed to just kind of specialize and help Brennan and myself if we do need help. He's kind of walked us through the process. He's the one that's going to be framing. He has a framing company and all that kind of stuff. So he'll be taking care of that as well. As kind of overseeing and just directing us, but not actually charging us like the full general contractor price that you would pay when you pay a builder to build a new house.
So it definitely helps to have some connections in the business.
Yes.
Cool. So you're working on building a house. I know that's been a little stressful for you. You just are selling your house this week.
This week, yes.
Yes, and moving into temporary housing until your new house is done. You've got your license. You've got your job. I think you're doing an awesome job. It's going pretty well. What about goals for the future? Any ideas on what you're looking to do, accomplish in the next few years or longer out?
Yes, I think one of them, it will be interesting. It kind of entails both work and personal, is with the building of our house. I'd really like to be pretty involved and see like the construction side of stuff so I can carry that back over to the flips. Mark and I have kind of joked about like me being a general contractor. I don't know that I would take it that far, but just really gaining some knowledge and being able to move forward with that, both on my personal house and the flips. And like I said, I guess I don't have a specific goal in mind for that, but just really being able to work with that and see where that takes me. Every year, I also kind of set a sales goal. I can't remember if I shared my sales goal with Mark in the office or not, but at the beginning of the year, I always kind of set a number that I have in mind. This year, I'm super close to my number already. I need like 1 more big house or 2 more smaller deals to get to that number that I have in mind. So hopefully I've still got a few more months. Don't have any super active deals right now, but hopefully can find something else. And that's just kind of what I do is I set a number every year at the beginning of the year and hope I hit it and, reevaluate the next year and usually bump it up and stuff. So it'll be interesting. And that's just kind of what I like to do.
Cool. And then you ran into kind of a couple of frustrating situations the last couple of years with real estate.
Yes.
Where you didn't get paid a commission. But sometimes things just happen in real estate. You have to realize that you're not going to get every deal. Some deals are going to go bad. Some are going to go not the way you liked it. So, do you mind talking about maybe your most frustrating deal in the last year and what happened?
I've had a couple. 2014 was not my year. Like, I'll be the first to say that. It was horrible. One deal, it was the most expensive house I had done to that point. So pretty, high dollar for me since I don't do a ton of stuff. Wrote the offer and the agent came back and said he was not willing to pay a commission at all. Ended up just being kind of messy. And my buyers, I wasn't really willing to make them say that they had to pay me a commission because we still had a house to sell for them. Another pretty high dollar house ended up being actually even more expensive than the one they bought. High dollar house to sell, high dollar house they were buying. So I wasn't comfortable asking them to pay me commission twice. So it was horrible and I lost a lot of sleep over it. But at the end of the day, it was it was just a commission and it wasn't worth like getting that worked up about, and move forward. Got their other house sold, made money there. They're great people. They were very appreciative. We had been looking for a long time, and it was just the house that they had kind of their heart set on. And it just happened to be that it didn't pay a commission. So that had to be okay.
Oh, Nikki's leaving out a little bit of the story to kind of, she's being nice.
Yeah.
But what happened was an agent who's actually in our office had told her about this house and said her buyer should go look at it sometime. And he failed to kind of mention that he wasn't paying a commission until after they decided they liked it. And there was a lot of drama, a lot of things going on in the office about how that was handled and how it worked out. And I wasn't real happy with the situation, and neither was she. But in the end, she handled it the right way. I think she took care of her clients and did what was best for them. In the long run, that's going to help her out a lot more than if she would have steered them away from that house or told them they had to do something, pay her a commission, even though she didn't tell them that up front. Or, a lot of bad things could have happened from that, and she handled it the right way. And as far as the other agent, obviously, we avoid doing business with him on basically anything because we see the way he does business. So a lesson for people out there trying to maybe make a quick buck and screw some other people over. It usually doesn't work out for you in the long run. It will catch up to you eventually. So even though I know that frustrated Nikki a lot, and it frustrated me too, it worked out okay, not ideal, but she did an awesome job handling it. And in the future, that will help her out as opposed to blowing things up or, handling it in a different way. So good job on that.
Thank you.
Very cool. I guess before we head out of here, we've talked about a couple of different things. We've had a number of agents come through our team. Some have done awesome, some who have not done quite so great. What have you seen as your side? Because you've done really well as a part-time agent. I mean, you do better than most full-time agents probably. What have you seen some traits of the agents who are successful versus the ones who maybe aren't as successful as far as selling houses?
I think just listening and being able to follow the system. Myself, I came in knowing absolutely nothing, not having any real estate background whatsoever. And I think working with Mark has really helped just because he has the system. He has the tools in place to be successful if you want to. If you just put in that little bit of effort, not even a ton of effort, just follow the system, do what's laid out in front of you, and you can't really screw it up. It's when you're not willing to follow the system and you're not, you think you can go out on your own and do all these things and think you're going to make it big. I mean, it takes time, it takes effort, and, there's systems in place for a reason because they're here to make you successful. And I think that's the biggest thing. The agents that haven't succeeded, were just had their own things in mind and wanted to go their own route. And it kind of came back to bite them in the butt, it looked like.
Yeah. And I would say that I think focus is really important too. I see a lot of agents who try and do 10,000 different things at once, and they do none of them well. And it just is, you end up doing so much better if you just focus on one or two things that you do really, really well instead of trying to do 800 different things mediocre. No one wants, no one cares about the 799 other things you're doing. They just want the one thing you're doing with them for you to be able to do it really well. So like Nikki's really good at letting her friends and family know that she's an agent. And I see some of her posts on Facebook that are funny about realtors and what, silly stories they have. And at the same time, she lets people know, hey, I'm also one of these realtors. So if you ever need to buy or sell a house, here I am. And there's some agents who won't even do that and won't just take a couple minutes to let other people know that. They go off trying to create a giant website or, doing just other crazy marketing stuff when really the basics are what help you sell houses. So, all right, that is all I had. Anything else you want to add? Any tips for success for people looking to get into real estate?
I don't think so. Not that I can think of, but thank you for having me on today.
Sure. What's your favorite part about being in the real estate industry?
The flexibility that it offers for me with my family and young children. I enjoy being able to have a career and really enjoy my career and succeed at it, but still being able to put that time towards my family and spend time with them.
Cool. And I would agree with that 100% for me too. All right, Nikki, thank you so much for being on the show. You did an awesome job. I know you're a little nervous, but you did great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.